Welcome into the garage area. This is our Richmond recap show where Denny Hamlin ended up winning the Cup race off of an absolute, just phenomenal pit stop there at the end. Do you know what his pit stop ended up timing out at?
8.6 seconds.
8.6 seconds. Denny Hamlin is a Coca-Cola Racing family driver. I'm a fan of Joey Logano, another Coca-Cola Racing family driver, along with Ryan and Chase Elliott. You're not a Coca-Cola family racing driver, but Chase Elliott is. So, today, to open the show, we are going to see if I can drink this can of Coke faster than Denny Hamlin's 8.6 second pit stop. Ryan, you're going to time me?
Yep.
Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay, when you say go, I'm going to crack the can.
Right. Go.
Oh.
Well, I just paused it there because I thought the first time you stopped, so you're at 14 seconds, and I gave you extra time. So you're over 14. Wow. So
this might have been a bad idea to start the show. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, you're definitely going to the back on that
one.
Oh
yeah. What was Bubba Wallace's pit time? I might be close. Oh. Okay. Note to self, I'm probably not going to do that again. Okay. Aside from just starting this whole thing over, we're just going to keep going from here. Yeah, Denny ended up winning the race. He had a great pit stop. Got himself out in front of Martin Truex Jr., who absolutely dominated the race, leading, I think it was 228 laps. This is going to be bad. The whole time I'm just going to be burping. Kyle Larson finished third. He ended up leading the second most laps with 144. Denny only led 17, but he definitely led the one that counted, thanks to his pit crew. So, man. They got him out in plenty of time to take the lead. Kind of interesting. I thought that the way that the whole race shaped up, it started under wet conditions. Yeah. We had a lot of rain throughout the day. They've started on the wet weather tires. All the drivers said that those things just were phenomenal. They love those wet weather tires. We say this every time they go on, though, but they like that tire. It's a soft compound. It wears out. Denny talked a lot on his podcast about the tires getting hot and just losing grip that way, but the tires aren't wearing out.
Yeah.
He talks about this a lot, much like we talk about how we need more tire fall off and more horsepower in these cars. That was certainly... it was more interesting at the beginning of the race than it did kind of end up being throughout, as far as guys being able to pass and things along that line. I don't know how you felt about it. I still thought the race was interesting when the pit stop strategy started to develop, way more than it is on a road course like we argued about last week.
Yeah.
It was just kind of a matter of the first stage, you knew what you were doing. You were going to have a competition caution. They were going to take off the wet weather tires, put on the slicks, go to the end of the stage. There were going to be non-competitive pit stops because there were wet weather tires. I don't really know why that was necessary. I didn't think that it was.
That was more of the pit road wasn't dry and stuff, which I want to talk more about the wet tire setup, whether you really liked that they got out on the wet tires. Obviously, the racing I thought was good on the wet tires, but they still had this red flag. They stopped the cars on the backstretch to dry out pit road, even for non-competitive pit stops.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to think of how much time did they really save, because Denny made the point that NASCAR didn't even try to bring out the jet dryers to start drying the track before the race.
Yeah,
because obviously they could have had jet dryers on the track during the pre-race, like even the pre-race and then the pace laps. They could have been starting to dry the pit road and stuff too. True. I mean, obviously they can't really do much with the cars on pit road.
Right.
I mean, I would have thought they could do some stuff, but the crews could be working on stuff around the cars. But it just kind of hates that I think they did made extra pace laps at that competition caution, and even at the the caution came out just before the end of stage one.
Yeah.
And they ran like 7 laps under caution for. It just seemed a little extra to try and dry things up. So I don't know how much they really saved with it. I like the theory of it, but I just feel like it needs some more worked out.
Yeah, I think that's more NASCAR race control in the race having issues with that. And I don't know what I guess basically what I'm taking away from this is I think the wet tires worked. They did what they were designed to do. It all had to do with race control and how that all shook out from there. Once they decided to put the tires on, and just like you said, when are they going to drive pit road? When are they going to? I mean, obviously they didn't want to drive the racetrack because they wanted to see how these tires performed at the damp. Like that was the whole point.
Yeah.
I don't blame NASCAR for doing that. It's kind of a live experiment.
Yeah.
And they have some data on this already. They're not going to throw these guys out there cold with no testing on that same tires, which we know that they've done in the past. I definitely like this idea. I think it's got some traction, pun intended. I think it's got some legs. It's something that we could pursue in the future because I don't know, like you said, I don't know how much time they saved overall in the evening, but at least made you feel like you were getting going sooner.
Yeah.
And I think it got you hooked into the race to start with instead of like, well, I'm still dry on the racetrack. I'll go watch. I don't know if there was any college basketball on at the time or not, but whatever. Yeah. Go watch something else in the meantime until they get this thing running, and then maybe you never come back to it.
Yeah.
So I guess I do think it's good for that purpose.
Yeah.
But I don't
for like the more casual fan to it.
Cause, here's the other thing. I'm going to go on a rant on this, so I'll make this real brief. Why are we so concerned about catering to the casual fan? What happened to people like you and me?
Yeah.
Like the people that are going to sit down and we're going to watch this race every week, even if we have to record it, even if we can't watch it live, like whatever the case is, we are going to watch the NASCAR Cup Series race every week. Yeah. And when we were kids, it wasn't even available every week. You didn't even, either it was on Fox, ABC, or NBC. It was the only way we were going to watch races.
Yeah.
And if it was on a cable channel, we didn't stand a chance. You had to read about it in the paper the next day or look it up on the internet if you could get the dial up to work.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we are going to sit down and watch this race every week, and it's like, it's like NASCAR doesn't care about us fans anymore. It's all about, well, let's bring in these new people and let's just make racing what it was when we were growing up and fell in love with it.
Yeah.
And you won't have a problem. You'll retain your crowds.
Yeah.
And it seems like they're struggling with that. But I getting back to our original point with the wet tires, I do think that they're a positive thing. I think they're moving in the right direction. I'm interested to see where it goes from here.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the drivers that we picked this week. And I got to tell you, the garage area is on a heater when it comes to picking drivers. A while back, we got, after I think it was the Las Vegas race, we got a comment on one of our social medias where somebody said, oh, way to go out on a limb and pick Kyle Larson, to win a race that this guy dominates.
Yeah.
Well, look, we're not trying to pick the betting odds favorite.
Yeah.
It's literally just who we think are going to win.
Yeah.
And you picked Kyle Larson that week, and he won.
Yeah.
And I think you said earlier today, all of the points that you've scored in our little standings thing that we got going on here, we're all off of wins.
Yeah.
So this week you won again with Denny Hamlin and his pit crew. I really think that that's where that win belongs. I think you should donate your points in our standings to Denny Hamlin's pit crew rather than take them yourself, because they're really the guys.
Yeah, that or Martin Truex's slow pit crew. That was
they weren't that bad. I mean, a 10-second pit stop is not bad.
Yeah.
It just, Denny's crew was great. Denny said that on his podcast, whether or not Truex's crew was slow or whether his crew just beat him, and he settled on the idea that his crew just beat him. Obviously, Denny's going to say that, but I think he's right. Like, that crew was just smoking fast.
Yeah.
And that's what won him that race. He did a phenomenal job. I'm sure Denny made up some time on pit road himself and the different tricks that the drivers do coming to and leaving their pit stalls and all that. But yeah, definitely he won the race. He had a very fast race car, but he was out of time to catch Truex. And when they had that caution with a couple laps to go, we'll talk a little more about that in a little bit. And they had to come down pit road. That pit crew just absolutely won him that race, getting him out in front like that. Jumping the restart didn't hurt. That definitely was a big advantage as well. We'll come back to talk about some of this in just a second. Some other guys that stuck out to me, Josh Berry, I thought he had a very good race overall. Had a little bit of an incident with Daniel Suarez. How did you see that incident? Did you think that he absolutely wrecked him, or just kind of incidental contact? What was the deal?
I mean, I saw it. Josh had his nose down inside of him the whole time down the front straight. I mean, he wasn't inside of him, but was looking inside.
It must have been inside of him.
Going into turn one, he was there. I mean, I feel like Suarez came down on him.
Yeah.
And hit him. I mean, Barry didn't mean to wreck him.
No, I'm sure he wasn't intending to wreck him. That's my view on it. Barry was coming from the back to the front right now, and he did a great job moving his way through the field and through traffic, and I think he just got trying to take a little bit too much too early in the race. I'm not saying that what he did was wrong. I'm not saying that he wrecked Suarez. I'm just saying that a little bit more patience could have been shown in that particular situation, in my opinion. I mean, yes, he was inside of him. Obviously, he wouldn't have turned him if he wasn't inside, but he wasn't inside by a whole lot. And probably could have just set him up to pass him down the back, stretching into 3 and 4 instead of just trying to shove your nose in there in that particular set of circumstances. And look,
he is a rookie.
Yeah, he is a rookie, and the 4 car's not fast every week.
Yeah.
Like, SHR, it depends on what racetrack we go to, whether they're fast or not.
Yeah.
And this is one that he was pretty quick at. He ended up finishing 11th. I do believe he was the highest finishing SHR car, unless there's somebody that I am mistaken. I see Gregson finished right behind him in 12th. Briscoe was in 18th. And Ryan Preece was in 28th. So, yeah, he was the highest finishing SHR car. He ran really well here last spring when he subbed for Chase Elliott.
Yeah.
I know that you said that kind of a pit strategy call got him up there at the end of that race.
Yeah.
But I didn't look up anything from that race. Just based on my own memory, I just feel like he ran near the front.
I want to say he was maybe top 15 at the highest to that point. Yeah.
Okay.
But
for whatever reason, I felt like he hung around the front of that race. Again, going off my memory, I don't have anything.
I mean, for him being that first race, it wasn't his first race, but he'd only been in a race car, that next gen car, a few races at that point.
Very true.
I mean, for being that, it was really good. So, I mean, now that he's had more time under that car, So I could see how he performed better now.
Alex Bowman, he was a car that started pretty far near the front. I think he started 4th. He never led the race, but he ended up running very consistently in the top 5.
Yeah.
And they just ended up having a bad pit stop under one of those
green flag cycles.
Green flag stops, and we should have explained that basically once you got through the first stage, I don't think we finished it off from here after we talked about that. After they got off the wet weather tires, they went to the end of the stage, stage 1, pitted, and then basically the strategy went from there. You had longer stages after stage 2 and 3 were both longer.
Yeah.
And in stage 2, it was a matter of whether you were going to split the stage in half to make your pit stop, or if you were going to do 2 stops and just make up time with better tires, cooler tires, I guess, really is the key there. And in that process, he had a bad pit stop, and the Kyle Busch caution came out, which we'll talk about, and that just got him way behind. And he ended up finishing 17th, which was not indicative of how he was running, although that is a kind of finish you would expect out of a hack like Alex Bowman, and I got it in there this week. I think that another guy that I noted was Todd Gilliland. I did not see David Gilliland running this week, but Todd, yes.
That just proves that when we grew up watching NASCAR.
Exactly. Todd Gilliland, he ran up near the front. He started 6th and stayed in that top 10 area for quite a bit of the day. I shouldn't say quite a bit. The first half of the race. I don't know. They didn't cover him as far as what happened to him. I assume he probably also had a bad pit stop or was behind when that caution came out.
I do remember they showed one clip of him getting loose and tapping the wall with the rear end of his car.
Okay, I don't.
But I don't think that would have been enough to hurt him. But I mean, I don't really remember much of him.
I remember seeing him up there racing with around where Joey Logano was running at the time, and then he ended up back in 21st when it was all said and done. So a disappointing end to what should have been a pretty decent day for him. Ty Gibbs was somebody that came in fairly high up in the point standings and started in the top 10, started in 8th, and ended up finishing in 16th. Obviously, not the run that he was looking to have for today. I expected him to be a little bit stronger. He showed his fake Christian self by swearing on the radio on Easter, as we duly noted, running the monster car instead of the He Gets Us car, too. That's all I got to say about Ty. That's my little bit of Ty Gibbs hate this week. I think that's really all that you could talk about that took place during the race until things came down to the end.
Yeah.
I don't know of anything else that was really notable that happened throughout the day. So before we talk about the finish of the race and everything that transpired at the end, just isolating that part, stage 1, stage 2, and 2/3 of stage 3, 3/4 of stage 3, whatever you want to say. Just based on that, how would you judge the racing that we saw?
I don't think it was terrible. I still feel like the package needs a little work, or the tire needs a little work. But
do you feel discouraged? Like, oh, we went to Bristol and we had great tire fall off, maybe even too much, and now it's like, we're just back to heating up tires.
yeah, I don't want to say discouraged. You can clearly tell they're trying to do stuff especially with like the Bristol tire and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I don't know if this was the same tire they had at Richmond last year or not.
I don't know.
But I know, like, Richmond during the day, I think last year they had more fall off because it was a day racing in the heat of the day. So it's almost like you got to bring a different tire if they're going to race at night.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought it was pretty decent racing throughout the night. It wasn't great. It wasn't like Richmond races of old, but it was one of the better Richmond races I've seen recently.
Yeah,
I
thought it was. I kind of hardly can remember more than a few years anymore, but I just feel like there's still a lot of aero in these cars at Richmond.
Yeah,
I don't like even like leading up to the end of the race where Denny Hamlin was running people down because he pitted, had 10 lap pressure tires there at the end in the leaders, and when he was like running them down once he got up to Logano, he couldn't pass Logano because just tires are just too hot,
Yeah.
And, he just couldn't get by Logano because of the air.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that plays a way bigger factor than it should, especially at a short track like Richmond. That's unacceptable in my opinion. That's a factor even. But at the same point, I just thought that there was enough pit strategy to keep me interested in what was happening all the time. I wasn't like, oh, is somebody going to go up and pass Truex? It was basically just, how is this run going to play out before the next pit stop?
Yeah.
And is anybody look faster? Is anybody catching Truex? Is Truex's car going away? Like, it's kind of the idea of the old mile and a halves when they would get long green flag runs and you're just waiting until the next series of pit stops. A lot how the Coca-Cola 600 would play out every year of, is this guy's car getting any better or worse as the night goes on?
Yeah.
Is anybody catching anybody in front of them? I felt like that's really what you were paying attention to, not is somebody running down the leaders or is my driver working his way through the field or anything like that. I didn't feel like you really had any of that going on. I don't know if I said it or not. Larson won stage 1, Truex won stage 2. Those were the guys that were on opposite strategies for most of the evening. Or no, they were on the same strategy. Hamlin was on an opposite strategy from them.
Well, if you want to get technical, stage 2, Truex and them and others were doing like a 2-stop in the stage, and then Larson was going to do 1 stop.
Okay, so Larson was on the opposite strategy.
Yeah, in stage 2.
Stage 2, okay.
And then come stage 3, pretty much everybody did a 2-stop strategy. Just some drivers, their first stop they made, whereas first and second stop they did like 10 laps later, mainly Bell and Hamlin. That's why Hamlin had like 10 lap pressure tires and he was catching them at the end. So and Bell had the same thing, but he had a speeding penalty.
Right.
So and then he actually ended up finishing back in the top 10, I believe. So
did he? Yeah. He looked like he was going to be strong for a minute till he got that speeding penalty. Right. It did get a little bit confusing because, like you said, in stage 2, certain drivers were on a strategy of a 1-stop stage, and others were on a 2-stop stage, but they didn't stay necessarily with that strategy going into the third stage.
Well, I think that a lot of guys saw what happened when they stayed out on the 1-stop strategy. Like Larson, he was leading, he dominated up to that point.
Right.
And then, he stayed out to the midway point of the stage to come in and pit. And then he drove back up to 6, and he would have probably caught Truex, and then Truex would have pitted again, and then Truex would have just tried to run down Larson to the end of the stage. But when that caution came out for Kyle Busch, which I don't know if we talked too much about it, but it was kind of a iffy caution at that, and that just Larson ended up 6, and others ended up lap down. So that was I think that's what happened with Bowman. He ended up a lap down because of that, and then he could get back. or he ended up in the back or something to that point. Anyhow, it just I think people were afraid in the last stage to
get
take that chance. Yeah. So everybody's like, all right, we're doing the same strategy.
Yeah, I agree. That just it did end up turning on its own for just organically from the way things were playing out in the race.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't talk a whole lot about the Kyle Busch caution, but nothing there to me really warranted a caution. I wasn't upset to have a caution at that particular point in the race, but at the same time, like, you've got to have real cautions.
Yeah.
Like, if something is caution worthy, you've got to throw the yellow. And if it's just a driver scraping the wall or something very minor contact like Kyle had, unless there is significant debris or something that you've got to actually go out there and clean up, I can't see why that needed a caution. Did that race, was it okay for us to break that up a little bit with that yellow? Yes, but should it have been for something more severe than Kyle Busch scraping the wall? Yeah. So I'm sure everybody's, all the podcasts I've listened to, both the Teardown and Actions Detrimental so far this week, have been waiting for Freddie Kraft to rant on Door Bumper Clear. And I'm looking forward to that as well, because you know that he flips out every week when they do or don't throw a caution or whatever the case is.
I think there was a short clip I just got a glimpse of on Twitter already from it. It was like, what even is a caution? that was the only part I really saw of it. That was...
Yeah, that is going to be... I'm looking forward to listening to that tomorrow for sure. So, yeah, I mean, this is nothing new. They talk about it almost every week that NASCAR shouldn't have thrown a yellow for this. They should have thrown a yellow for that. Same thing with tire wear and horsepower. I mean, you just add it to the list. We'll just post a note over here somewhere in the show that says we want more tire wear, more horsepower, more consistency, and yellows. That's a theme of the show every week, or any NASCAR podcast.
Yeah, it's like we go back to Atlanta, and they had Byron and McDowell wrecked on the apron. You know,
but that was during a green flag pit cycle, and we are not going to mess that up. Yeah, no, I totally understand. And look, that would have been a disaster to have a yellow during that. But if it's a yellow, it's a yellow.
Yeah, it would have been even more disaster if they're sitting there and get T-boned by a guy going 180 mile an hour. You know,
it's a good point. It's a good point. Okay, anything else we want to talk about from the body of the race? I think we covered everything that I can think of.
That's all I can think of.
All right. So at the end, as you alluded to, Denny Hamlin's coming on 10-lap fresher tires, and he is just picking them up and laying them down, as they used to say. He's going by cars left and right. There's some open racetrack before he gets to Joey Logano in second place.
Yeah.
And as he gets through that open racetrack, Truex is simultaneously catching lapped cars, and a bunch of them.
Ross Chastain to be
exact. You saw it played last week on the broadcast when they asked different drivers who's the hardest driver to pass on the racetrack. They all said Ross Chastain. And they asked Ross Chastain. He said the one car, which is it. So Ross Chastain is definitely one of the hardest drivers to pass since Ryan Newman retired. And maybe you throw Kevin Harvick in there too. I don't know. I feel like he was somebody that would fight with you a little bit. That was the car that Truex was trying to pass to put a lap down. And obviously Ross is going to try to fight to stay on the lead lap. Most drivers are going to fight to stay on the lead lap, but Ross is exceptionally hard to pass. So that's holding Truex up. Denny's catching Logano, probably the second hardest guy to pass in the field. And as Denny gets to him, he said on his podcast that he was going to try to push it. He was going to try to get by the 22, and he couldn't. They raced side by side for a long time, inches off each other. He ended up heating up his tires, and he lost his grip. And he wasn't able to end up passing the 22. In the meantime, Joey's starting to catch the 19 to the point that we went from thinking that Denny Hamlin is going to run down Truex because there's 26 laps to go or something along that line.
Yeah.
And he's going to get there at the speed he's running right now. And especially with Truex catching lap traffic, Truex does eventually get by the one car, but he can't get by some of the others. And he's still being held up. And now it's looking like Logano is going to start catching him and possibly have an opportunity to pass for the lead. Well, now I'm getting excited because A, my pick Martin Truex Jr. is leading the race, and B, my favorite driver, Joey Logano, might have an opportunity to pass him. So if Logano can get there and get by him, and I can get the win for my favorite driver and get the point for best fit driver finish of between the two of us for this week, then that's obviously going to be the biggest biggest possible best outcome for me.
Best case scenario.
Best case scenario for me this week. But it doesn't end up happening because it does seem like with probably 7 laps to go, everything kind of evened out. Like Truex was maintaining his lead. Logano stopped catching him. Denny wasn't anywhere near Joey to pass him for second either. So it's going to be Truex, Logano, and Hamlin. And listen, for the way that Joey Logano's season started, this is going to be a great finish for him, which I'm going to be thrilled for. And I'm sitting here just laughing all the way to the bank that I'm going to end up with my pick winning. The garage area is back on top, picking a winner. And I'm going to end up beating you out. And then all of a sudden, you see the 5 car spinning down through the infield, and it's on the second to last lap. Like, all Truex needs to do is take the white flag. Yeah. This race is over. I don't know exactly. I wasn't even focused on what happened there. It looked like maybe Truex got a little loose, and the 23 was there.
You mean Larson?
Yeah.
Larson's the one that spun, yeah.
Yes. It looked like the 5 was loose and the 23 was there.
Yeah. Well, supposedly, Bubba said himself he got loose and corrected into Larson.
Okay. So, regardless.
Yeah. It was kind of a mixture of both. But yeah.
Like I said, I had no idea what happened because I did not care about that incident. All I knew was that Larson spun and saved it. Which, look, that's a caution for incident. That had to happen.
Yeah.
Like, if anybody's saying that there shouldn't have been a yellow for Larson spinning there, I think that's stupid. Like, spinning race car, yellow flag.
Yeah.
Unless it's a giant racetrack like Coda or something like that where you saw a single car spins, I'm okay with not throwing yellows for that. But here at Richmond, 1 car spins, it's a yellow flag.
Yeah.
So let's just not even debate that. So now there's 2 laps to go. There's going to be a yellow. They're going to come down pit road. They're going to put on new tires. I don't think fuel is even in question at this point, but they're going to definitely put on new tires, something a little cooler, a little grippier.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, Denny Hamlin bangs out that fast pit stop and gets the lead. And I am flipping out at this point because now Truex has lost the race, but not only that, but your pick, Denny Hamlin is now taking the lead, and Joey Logano gets shuffled all the way back to 3rd.
Yeah.
Then we go, one thing that we didn't cover to this point was, I don't think we said it, was in one of the green flag pit cycles when Truex and Larson were trying to battle with each other.
Oh, yeah.
That Larson did, in an effort to beat Truex off of pit road, blocked him all the way out to the wall.
Yeah.
And then when they did finally get up to speed, Truex did pass him because he was a faster car at that particular point in the race.
Yeah, that would have been the final green flag pit stop.
Final green flag stop.
Yeah.
And so that could have played a factor into why Truex is frustrated when we get to this part. They go down to restart the race. Hamlin on the inside, Truex on the outside, Logano second row inside, and Larson second row outside. And you and I have both watched this replay more than once.
Yeah.
You're of the opinion that Truex tried to lay back a little bit.
Yeah.
I am of the opinion that Denny Hamlin jumped the restart by about 20 yards, a mile. Might as well have started on the backstretch. And he went well before the restart zone, and he didn't, but he had Truex all but clear by the start-finish line. Yeah. I mean, he was way out in front of Truex at that particular point. TV did a terrible job covering that restart.
Yeah.
It wasn't until a replay way later that we were actually able to see what happened. But they showed the cars coming through 3 and 4, and you heard them throttle up, and next thing you just saw the start-finish line, and Hamlin was way out in front of him.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, something happened there. It looks like that Hamlin either got a real good jump or something, because...
Yeah. I thought Truex maybe just spun the tires or something as far back as he was.
But Truex hung in there for a little bit, and then lost it. And Logano was shoving through there on the bottom to try to get to second place. And Larson and him and Truex were racing pretty hard for a little bit. They kind of put each other in the wall there a little bit. And Hamlin ended up coming around, taking the checkered flag. And Truex just doored Larson down to the apron and into the wall. And,
down the backstretch on the last lap, you just see Truex door Larson a couple times.
Yeah.
And then once they crossed the start-finish line, Larson doored him up into the wall.
Okay, yeah. And then as his car is smoking with all the tire rubs that he's got on it, Truex, that is, he goes up and just slams the back bumper at Denny Hamlin. Yeah. Just a real meltdown moment for Martin. A Martin meltdown, if you will.
Yeah.
And he also said that Denny used him up in turn 1. I think that that's just absolute garbage.
Yeah.
Denny Hamlin did not use him up going into turn 1 by any means. Denny Hamlin definitely jumped the restart. He did not use Martin Truex Jr. up in turn 1. He got up the racetrack to take part of his line away for sure. I mean, that is racing, especially for the win. If they made contact, I sure couldn't see any.
I think they made a little contact, but Truex is of course also on Denny's door.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like he's leaving him in a room himself.
So yeah, I don't blame Truex for anything he did, but I certainly don't blame Denny. And I would love to string Denny up for something wrong that he did, and it just
other than the restart.
There is nothing after the start finish line that Denny did wrong, as far as I'm concerned, in making those final 2 laps, and he ended up getting the win. Now, as I said, he jumped the restart. It wasn't even a question in NASCAR's eyes. They said they reviewed it and it was fine.
Yeah. That kind of surprises me. I mean, I believe Truex was kind of holding back too, because it looked like Larson closed up to him. As that whole everything just came together at that point, and it looks like he took off. So I don't know what data they used to say it's all right. I mean, visibly it looks like he jumped it by a mile.
Yeah.
I mean,
but this is what I take issue with there. And look, I don't think that the win should be retroactively stripped from Denny Hamlin.
Yeah.
I don't
if
think
they had to make a decision, they would have had to make it within that lap, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Once the checkered flag falls out, it's done.
Yeah.
It's like a play in baseball or football. Once you have the next play, it's done.
Yeah.
So I don't think that there's anything. I don't think NASCAR shouldn't have done anything different other than call it a jumped restart.
Yeah.
And if they didn't do that in those 2 laps before the green flag and the checkered flag, it's done.
Yeah.
That's just how it happened. And I know that it's happened throughout history, and everybody has said that. Well, he's not the first driver to ever jump it and win the race. And that I'm not saying that any of those wins should be stripped from anybody or anything like that, but you got to do a better job relegating that then, if that's the case. If you have a restart zone, which means from this line to this line, the leader controls the race. When you enter this box here, the leader can go anytime. And if he does not go from the time you get to the second line, anybody can go.
Yeah.
Like, once you're through that zone, anybody can fire at any point and go. And Denny Hamlin went well before that zone. And Denny talked about on his podcast, too. Well, it's a zone. It's not a hard line. Well, the end zone in the NFL is a hard line.
Yeah.
It's a specific dimension. And if your issue is, well, I'm going to give up my advantage as the leader because he's going to know where I'm going to go then. Well, then don't go in that same spot.
Yeah.
And if you're saying that the restart zone is too small, that's fine. Make it bigger. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I even would say, and I suggested this to you, we should go as far as saying when the nose of the leader touches the first line of the restart zone, some light goes on that says you're in the restart zone and you can fire at any point. And when the leader's nose touches the other line, that light goes out and it means everybody else can go.
Yeah.
I don't think
the only argument you got about that would be maybe if the second place driver happens to trigger that line first.
But if you've got sensors in the cars to where you know who crossed what timing line when, you should be able to tell when the leader of the race hit that line. That should be what controls it.
Yeah.
So I understand it's not like a laser beam that you trip and that says that there's a car in the box. It's just got to be when the leader hits it. So I don't know. That would be my take on that one. You're out of excuses if you're Denny Hamlin, as far as I'm concerned, for saying that you didn't jump that restart. You did. You won the race, but you jumped the restart. And that's on NASCAR. That's not on Denny Hamlin. And if he's saying that, well, other drivers have done this and people get away with it throughout history, then that's a NASCAR problem. It's not a driver problem. People trying to defend him on Twitter and whatnot, what is your defense? He jumped it.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. Do you agree?
I agree. He jumped it.
Yeah. Okay. That pretty much covers the Cup race. I need a minute to take a breather after all of these hot and heavy opinions that I've just had here. I did not watch the Xfinity race. I saw that Chandler Smith won. And I saw that a rear TV panel got thrown from Joey Gase's car onto Dawson Cram's car. Just tell me a little bit about that race. What took place?
Oh, for the most part, it was dominated by Joe Gibbs Racing. Eric Almirola. I keep forgetting. Like I'm used to him being in a Ford, but he led the most laps. He and just late in the race, his stuff wore out, and Chandler Smith. I think in between those two, they led most laps. I don't remember exactly. I think they swapped the lead a couple different times in them cycles of pit stops. I mean, they only pitted under caution, but in between the caution stops and stuff.
Right.
But, back to the Dawson Cram thing and Joey Gase. It looks like Dawson Cram just kept in the throttle when he was in the back of Joey Gase, and he just got frustrated and whipped his thing. They said he damaged the windshield of Dawson Cram's car, probably just a tear off or something that crinkled up or something. But see who else was. We can talk about Bubba Pollard. I don't follow late model racing too much, but he is a big deal. Everybody loved that he was in this race. He started, I want to say, just about dead last. He was fastest in practice and then put out a bad qualifying lap.
Oh.
But I don't know if that's just a deal. Sometimes if you're the first car to go out, sometimes it's not the most ideal one. But it was almost like over a second difference, and it's usually not that bad. So Denny made the point that being first out in practice maybe gave him that extra lap on a green track that was fast too. So maybe between the two, I don't know. But he drove up in the mid pack pretty quickly, and he kind of got it out there. I think I don't think he's done many live pit stops, because most late model racing is like we were talking about non-competitive stops. They stop at the race and they all just have 5 minutes to pit. Mm-hmm. And the rear or the last stage was kind of split up into doing two strategies. Everybody had tires at the end of stage 2, and they would have had to pit one time, whether it be under green or caution. But caution came out pretty early in the second stage. They only had one set of tires left. So, like half the field took tires and half the field didn't take tires, expecting later a caution would come out and then they would be at the freshest tires. And if you want to talk about tire wear, Xfinity tire wear is, I think, really where the Cup Series needs to be, because Chandler Smith, I think this is where he really took over because he got through traffic better than Alex Almirola did.
Oh, okay.
I think he started like 15th, and in 7 laps he was the leader.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, tire wear and that was only like 25 to 30 laps on their tires.
Okay.
And, Justin Allgaier would have been like the first car on the opposite strategy. And him and maybe Custer was first car, and then Allgaier took the lead from Custer, I think, at that point. Because Allgaier did lead some laps in the beginning of the race. It looked like he was going to have a strong car, but it was just a few laps on a short run seemed to be all he could hang on to. And he ended up being a lap down by the end of this, finishing 11th. So
okay.
It was kind of neat to watch who took tires, who didn't do tires, and how they got through the field and stuff. But that's pretty much how that went. So.
Would you say it was comparable to the Cup race in levels of excitement, or did you think it was a better race than the Cup race?
I feel like Cup race got real exciting because of that ending finish.
Yeah.
But I like the tire wear and the driving of the Xfinity cars so much better than the Cup cars.
Yeah.
I'm not good at explaining it. I think they even have more power than the Cup cars do.
At times, yeah.
Yeah, and lesser tires.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like they can drive up on other cars and get other cars aero loose and stuff, instead of getting aero tight themselves. When they drive up to a car, they can punch some air into the car in front of them and stuff like that, get people loose and race them. And I believe it's a better product.
Did we see much of a point standing swing from this week to last week?
So right now, Chandler Smith, I believe, took the lead over Austin Hill in the points.
Okay. And Chandler has 2 wins this year?
Yeah, both Austin Hill and Chandler Smith have 2 wins.
Okay.
And the rest were Cup drivers who won, I think. So.
Okay.
Or at least yeah.
Gotcha.
I know Larson won the other one. I don't know, maybe they've had 1 less race, I think, than the Cup guys. So that's 5. So Larson must have the other win then.
Okay. Okay. Yep, that would make sense.
Because they didn't race Bristol weekend.
They did not.
So I think that's one less race than the Cup guys. So Cups have 6. So
Okay. All right. Anything else that you wanted to talk about from the Xfinity race?
that's all I got.
The one thing that I wanted to say about the Cup race is I didn't hit the point standings for that. After we left COTA last week, Truex was leading, Ty Gibbs was second, Ryan Blaney was third, Hamlin was fourth, and Larson was fifth. And this week we had a little bit of a shakeup there. Truex retains the lead. Kyle Larson is second, Denny Hamlin third, Ty Gibbs fourth, and Ryan Blaney fifth. Those two drivers falling a little bit. I don't think that we really talked about Ryan Blaney. He wasn't really... They showed him on TV a couple times, but he wasn't really a factor at all in that race. And I think he finished... looking... I'm not seeing him. Okay, he finished 19th. So he did not have the greatest of days at all compared to his teammate Joey Logano, who got second, which is a significant change at Team Penske from usually it's Logano and Austin Cindric that are irrelevant each week, and then Blaney is competitive, and this week it was Logano that got to step into that role. Outside of that, I don't think that there's anything else to really talk about from the Richmond weekend. There was no truck race this weekend. Do you know where we're going next?
Martinsville?
We are going to Martinsville, and it has become one of my favorite racetracks throughout the years. I'll have to figure out who I'm going to pick for that race, being that I again get to pick first this week. I know that I'm not going to be able to pick Martin Truex Jr. again, and that wouldn't be a bad one, I don't think, for going to Martinsville. So I have to figure that out, who I'm going to end up taking from there. Do you know what time the race starts Sunday?
Supposedly 3 o'clock.
Yeah, supposedly 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
So we'll keep that in mind. Looking forward to Martinsville. It's probably, in this stretch of the schedule, this is my most looked forward to race after Bristol. It was Martinsville would be the next one that I'd point out and be like, I can't wait to see what that race is going to look like. So looking forward to that. Anything else you wanted to say before we get out of here?
That's all I got.
All right. We appreciate you guys watching the garage area and listening. Make sure that you follow us on our social medias on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter at the garage area. We appreciate you watching. Like, follow, subscribe, and we'll see you after Martinsville.